Recap in minutes. In today's video, we will be enjoying an action thriller film, entitled Jack Reacher. There will be spoilers ahead, chill out and enjoy. The movie begins in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A man drives a van into a parking garage. He puts a quarter in the meter for 30 minutes, then hides behind the garage's front wall with his sniper rifle. Over the wall, he scans the North Shore Trail with his rifle's sight. Finally, he takes aim and starts shooting, killing a man sitting on a bench, a woman carrying a briefcase up some stairs, a blonde woman carrying a shopping bag on the walking path, another woman trying to run away, and a young woman holding a tiny kid. The shooter escapes in the van. The police arrive, headed by Detective Emerson, and after determining there are no suspects around, they begin assessing the crime scene. Emerson discovers a shell casing lying in a crack on the garage floor, and he also decides to empty the parking meter. A fingerprint taken from a quarter in the meter is determined to belong to James Barr, a former U.S. Army sniper. The police raid Barr's house and find him sleeping. They also find the van, equipment for precision hand loading of ammunition, and a sniper rifle. Then, Barr writes "Get Reacher Reacher" on a notepad, being questioned by Emerson and Alex Rodin. Reacher is a former U.S. Army military police officer who's been inactive for 2 years. Rodin asks Emerson about Reacher. If Reacher doesn't want to be found, Emerson says they won't. Rodin's secretary announces Reacher's arrival. Rodin and Emerson take Reacher to where Barr is unconscious. Barr was not being placed under protective custody, perhaps on purpose, and was savagely attacked while being transferred to jail. Rodin refuses to show Reacher Barr's evidence. Rodin wants to know why Barr requested Reacher to testify. In a nearby cafe, Reacher eats while Helen records their conversation. Helen isn't a public defender, but she represents a firm that believes her father unfairly convicted others. Her firm wants to give Barr a fair trial. Reacher says Helen he investigated Barr in the Army and that he admitted to killing 4 Department of Defense contract employees. According to Reacher, Barr trained as a sniper for 2 years but never killed. He says Barr enlisted to kill people legally. If Barr did it again, Reacher would kill him. Not long after, Reacher offers to assist if Helen visits the victims' relatives. Helen's interactions with the victims' families aren't well received, and she worries for her life when she meets Rob Fourier, the father of a nanny who was shot while escaping with her charge. On the other hand, Linsky watches Reacher at the crime scene. As Reacher crosses the North Shore Trail near the stadium, parking garage, and Fort Duquesne Bridge, he realizes the evidence against Barr is too good. He believes a skilled sniper like Barr would have stopped his van on the bridge, opened the door, and shot individuals traveling perpendicular to him, then escaped. Meanwhile, Mr. Fourier is upset at Helen for choosing to defend Barr, and when Helen sees that he has a pistol sitting on a table next to his chair, she quickly apologizes and runs from the house. Reacher goes to the police station to go over the evidence. Emerson wonders why he didn't take notes. Reacher said he didn't need to, meaning he has excellent memory. Reacher asks Emerson why Barr parked that day. Emerson thinks Barr did it unintentionally. Later that night, Reacher walks to a busy pub for coffee and is approached by Sandy, who offers her a car. He tells her he can't afford her. She denies being a prostitute and then says he can't afford to get involved with her. 5 guys appear, claiming to be the girls' brothers. The biggest of the 5, Jeb Oliver, tells Reacher to go. Jeb warns Reacher he'll beat him inside or outside the bar. Sandy claims she doesn't mind bleeding, so Reacher asks sarcastically if it means she's not pregnant. Reacher picks up a fight with the 5 men and is eventually caught by a police officer. Emerson and Helen visit Reacher in prison. Emerson can't hold Reacher because no one is prosecuting him. Reacher tells Helen that when he was at the bar, a lady named Sandy was expecting his name to be Reacher, not Jimmy Reese. He informed her the cops were there before the fight and that someone dispatched the 5 men to kill him. He informs Helen he is being followed. Helen wonders who it was, but neither she nor Reacher has a decent idea. Once he confirms she's okay following the experience, he asks her what she learned. Helen reports her findings about the victims, who were Chrissy Fourier, Rita Coronado, Nancy Holt, Olena Archer, and Darren Sawyer. At the 3 Rivers Motel, Reacher asks Helen to find out from Barr's credit card records where he hung out, including pubs, bowling alleys, strip clubs, and gun ranges. He's looking for anyone who knew Barr. Meanwhile, Linsky meets Charlie, the real killer, in a dark alley and gives him Brook Seal construction money and Reacher's police file. His file on Reacher. Linsky handles Charlie's front-of-house operations while he and his team conduct maintenance. Linsky tried to kill Reacher with 5 locals, but failed. He tells Charlie he killed Jeb. Charlie wasn't happy. Linsky should have consulted Charlie and concerns him. Also in the alley, standing in the shadows, is a man called the Zek. Linsky offers to make amends if asked. The Zek tells Linsky about his experience in a Siberian prison. Zek tells Linsky he ate his fingers to survive. He tells Linsky to eat his left-hand fingers. He's stunned. Seeing Charlie's gun, he worries he'll be shot otherwise. Linsky chews with his left thumb. After howling in agony for a few seconds, he gives up. Zek signals Charlie to shoot Linsky. Charlie appears to hack Linsky's body with a handsaw. The next day, Helen checks Barr's credit card report. Barr reportedly bought food and gas. Reacher assumes Barr visited a shooting range every Saturday based on his petrol expenses. Helen must find 700-yard ranges within 150 miles. Sandy works at Default Auto Parts, where Reacher drops him off. Gary asks for Reacher's ID and why he wants to meet Sandy. Reacher confronts Sandy's manager and enters her office. Sandy wishes Gary privacy. Sandy is afraid of Reacher. Jeb told her at the pub that Reacher would grope her, she alleges. She got $100 that night. Sandy writes down Jeb's address and assures Reacher she won't get in trouble for lending him her car. She's reluctant to give Reacher the keys because she's driving Jeb's car. Sandy informs Reacher she's off at 6 and recommends they meet. She prefers Reacher to the lowlifes she typically hangs out with. Reacher tells her she doesn't have to do what those guys say. He asks whether she has money and urges her to leave town. Reacher heads to Jeb's house, and this time he's followed by Vlad. Reacher presents a fake warrant to Jeb's mother sitting on the porch. She stares and doesn't speak. Reacher sees drug paraphernalia and assumes the woman is high. He opens the door and enters. The woman then calls on her cell phone from under her blanket. Reacher inspects every room. He enters the bathroom and wonders why the shower curtain is ripped. Two men sneak up behind him while he ponders by the door. One of them uses a baseball bat to knock Reacher into the bathtub. Two attackers race to knock Reacher in the tub. Reacher ducks and slams the bat guy's head into the tile wall, piercing his left eye. Reacher drags the bat person in front of the crowbar guy and smacks him. Reacher tackles the bat and crowbar guys. He knocks out the bat and crowbar guys by smashing their heads together. A third man rushes up behind Reacher and points a gun at him. Reacher bends the man's pistol hand, locking his trigger finger. Jeb's mother said he'd left, but he didn't know. Reacher needs the keys. Reacher tells Helen in her office that Jeb Oliver is murdered, and his death is covered up. He informs Helen that Barr is innocent. Helen briefly believes Reacher is delusional and that her father was right to warn her about hiring him without knowing him. Reacher explains to her why he's the way he is, then asks her to run the license plate on a silver Audi that's been following him. Meanwhile, Zek then calls Charlie while Vlad is in Charlie's Audi. Charlie tells Vlad his cover was exposed because the lawyer ran the car's registration plate. Zek gives orders. On the other hand, Helen has trouble thinking the killings are part of a scheme. Reacher writes a note to Helen and tells her to keep it. Helen receives a call alerting her that Lebenauer Enterprises registered the Audi. Helen unfolds Reacher's paper. Helen decided in her examination of the victims that Mr. Archer's economic troubles, poor health, and lawsuit with Lebenauer Enterprises caused him to sell Brookseal Construction. Mrs. Archer kept the company when her husband died at his work. Reacher tells Helen that Mrs. Archer, who took over her husband's business, was the only intended victim and that the other 4 deaths were a cover-up. Mrs. Archer had settled with Lebenauer Enterprises, but she was shot on her way to seek a business loan.